What's up, Tracy? What's up, George? Can everybody hear me?
What's good?
I'm good. Always good to connect with my fellow Tar Heels and my fellow HBCU Heroes execs to really have a great time in the space and talk about how to advance HBCU students in their careers and their entrepreneurship objectives. So today we're going to have a wonderful panel. We're really focused on navigating between corporate America and self-employment. Really people are walking both paths these days, whether you develop your skill set in corporate America and then move over to being an entrepreneur or vice versa. And so we're going to talk about how to move back and forth between those spaces and the important skill sets that you need. So without further ado, I want to introduce our wonderful two panelists, and then I want them to tell us a little bit about themselves in a brief snapshot. But today is what I call the Nigerian movement. Both of our both of our panelists are wonderful Nigerian Americans. My stepfather's a Nigerian American, and so the immigrant contribution to entrepreneurship and corporate America and to the HBCU experience is extensive. Both of my parents are Howard University graduates, and we're part of that first Nigerian wave in the 60s to come to the United States and experience HBCUs. So I want to welcome in both Olu Davis and Folayo Lasaki. I'll let them tell you a little bit about themselves. We will start ladies first with Folayo. If you could tell us a little bit about your career trajectory and how you found your way here today.
Sure. I would say that my career trajectory was one that was probably a bit more of a scenic route. I think that my story is full of pivots and kind of taking the best approach for me versus what might look like the obvious choice to other people. So I started out my career, I'm SVP and head of marketing and comms at, as Tracy said, LOL Network, which is Kevin Hart's comedy brand and entertainment company. But I started off, many years ago and straight entertainment. I was an assistant, started off in the agency world, talent agency world, moved from agency side to casting, to production, to script reading, to marketing, to the digital side, back to the traditional side, then to a hybrid side. So I've kind of found my way all around this industry. And I think that when I think about my trajectory from an outsider's perspective, it looks like, whoa, what were you doing there? But then from my perspective, it was gaining all of the skills that most people don't necessarily have. So you were going this way, I was going this way. So that's the journey for me. But excited to be here and excited to chat with all of you.
I think that's a wonderful example, Folayo, of the path sometimes of least resistance, sometimes of most resistance. I mean, we all kind of zigzag. I started at Procter & Gamble and then Goldman Sachs, and then kind of became an entrepreneur almost 20 years ago, and really have found a way to connect my passions to impact and profitability and the things that I want to do in the world and leave a difference. So I think we all walk that road, and it's interesting to unpack that for students here today. So Olu, without further ado, can you tell us a little bit about your road and what led you here today?
Yeah, I would say my road, it may feel a little bit more linear, I think, than my co-panelists in the sense that on paper, right? And I say that because I came out of college knowing I had a lot of passion for a lot of different things. Marketing, advertising was always kind of at the root of like my passions, though. I think I was a marketing kid before I knew what the term meant. Just being in love with commercials and dissecting them. So started off at the WB Television Network out of school. Ended up in the national media like broadcast sales department. So I spent 7 years there. Throughout that time, though, I've always felt, to be frank, uncomfortable with the concept of relying on a paycheck from a company, although I understood the importance and value of it as well. So throughout that, right out of college, I went and got my real estate license as an example, because I just felt like, okay, I'm in Los Angeles. That's something I wanted to do. So that was something that was a big part, I think, of what influenced how I thought and how I approached my career, because even when I left the WB television network after 7 years, went to Disney, still within a broadcast media, sales and advertising, I continued to always dive into things outside of my corporate affiliations that I was inspired by. I did a film program, like a film boot camp. And so not realizing, but maybe subconsciously knowing that all these things were going to kind of position me in my career for further positions, that I approached them with a different lens, from a more holistic lens of everything that I was doing. So did that, left Disney and went over to NBC Sports, and did a couple of years across NBC Sports portfolio. So selling Super Bowl, Belmont Stakes, all those kind of big, kind of prestigious historical sports properties. And again, for me, coming up from a background of Warner Brothers and Disney, and having these media and content backgrounds, the sports media world was something that I knew I didn't have a lot of practical experience in, and I had an opportunity to jump into it. So I did. Learned that game pretty like fast and furiously. And then wanted to go over to culture, marketing, lifestyle, which had me going over to Complex, which a lot of people 12 years into my career kind of scratched their head, because Complex is a media brand, felt a little more scrappy. And I sat in this kind of ivory tower world of NBC Sports, and they're like, what are you doing? But for me, it was about kind of jumping back into the culture side of, like, fashion, music, and just the element of like urban hip hop and the influence. So did that. Left there, ended up going over to Rock Nation for a year, moved to New York, and had a fortunate opportunity to live in New York and sit across Rock's sports agency, as well as the music and management and label side, doing partnerships and developing artists and athletes and their brands and doing endorsement deals, before jumping over to Vivo back in Los Angeles. So it was a crazy kind of full 360, because my coming to Vivo kind of took, and I run the Pacific Southwest sales team at Vivo, but what it allowed me to do is have a lens that looked from media and advertising sales. From, I used to represent artists, but all of a sudden now I'm representing the media brand aspect of it. Then now, as you all kind of see on my title, going over to Misha's Kind Foods, which is probably the biggest kind of scratch your head. It's a plant-based, dairy-free cheese company. But all of that, which I'm kind of failing to mention, and I'll probably get into it more, is around having social impact, right? And so I, out of college, was part of a nonprofit called LA Junior Chamber, which allowed me to do a lot of community work in LA, which is what Misha's, even though it's a plant-based cheese company, was really rooted in impact. So, I'll kind of stop there, because, I probably took way too long to explain that trajectory and journey. But it was just really about passion. I kind of sum it up in like my passions, and always being wanting to learn things, and not allowing, having a 9 to 5 to kind of stifle like what I wanted to do.
I think that's really powerful, Olu, and I think you touched on a lot of great themes that I want to try and tie together. One is, being an entrepreneur means getting comfortable with a certain amount of risk tolerance, which means that check is not coming in every week, and you have to be uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that amount of risk tolerance isn't for everybody. Two, I think there is a certain element and theme of skill set development. We talk about developing marketing skills, developing branding skills, legal skills, whatever it may be that is transferable from one career to another as you progress. And then third, I think, is this concept of blue chip brands. A lot of us, whether it's Olu's background at all the great properties he mentioned, or Folayo's background, or my background, we've got a chance to kind of stamp our skill set in these blue chip brands, whether it's NBC or Goldman or wherever it might be. And those cultures and the things you learn from them are often transferable. And I always say, no one's ever hurt by saying, I used to work at NBC, or I used to work at, whatever it might be. So I think that gives you a certain amount of gravitas and ability to walk into a room and know that you are accomplished, and know that you're able to be there and contribute. So I think those are common themes that we need to think about as we navigate entrepreneurship to larger enterprises and back and forth. So with that, I want to make sure that I give each panelist some time to talk about our overall theme and why we do this Career Fest, and that is the power of securing the bag. Now, I'm gonna drop dime on Folayo and say she didn't even know what the term was, but but now she's hip to it, and so I'm gonna let her start by saying, what does secure the bag as a concept mean to you?
So for me, and thank you for that. I appreciate you. For me, when I think about this and what it means, it's kind of been a theme in my life. You know, I was securing the bag before I knew what securing the bag was, so it's fine. So for me, when I think about this, it is about having control over your own life. And I don't mean that in terms of like you can control everything, but there are certain things that you control, and understanding that there is choice along the way. There's a lot of people that tell you that there aren't choices. There's choice along the way. There's risk that goes with some of those harder choices, but there's always choice. My brother actually, when we were sort of talking about what our goals were, he coined this term stress-free abundance. And that to me is the secure the bag, where it's like, I want to build a life for myself, whether that is through my entrepreneurial ventures, whether it's through my, more day job things, whatever it might mean. But it is a life that is on the route to stress-free abundance. I don't need to be a billionaire, right? But to have an abundant life while still being able to enjoy it, that's what securing the bag means to me. I don't need anybody else to know how I'm doing. I just need to have that for me. And that is my guiding force. That is my guiding principle. And I have very smart people in my life who always say really good things. Another friend of mine, she just said, I'm not going to work for any job that doesn't work for me. I'm like, I love that. Those are the kind of guiding lights and the guiding principles in my life. And that's how I approach securing the bag, is understanding that the only person that can do that is me. Nobody's going to secure it for me. So I have to put my feet in the right direction in order to get there and really know where there is.
Folayo, I have done many, many panels. I've been a professional speaker for almost 20 years, colleges, corporate America, etc. That concept of stress-free abundance, you get the gold star for the day. I think that as millennials and Gen Z think about their careers, people are very focused on those concepts. It's not so much about how much money you have in your bank account or what your title is at work. It's about what you just described. And I think that's a great concept for people to put on a hashtag in their back pocket, in their traveling suitcase, virtual suitcase, to know that, look, let's all strive for stress-free abundance and really moving towards our purpose. Because part of this is really, the journey is about finding your lane, right? It's about finding your lane, running your race, and then, really figuring out how you can contribute your best self to society. So thank you for that, Folayo. That was very powerful. Olu, you got to come with some good follow-up on that one.
No, listen, I'm a big believer in energy, man, and I will say that she just elevated the frequencies in this virtual room as it relates to perspective on what that means. And it took me to a special place around what is the bag, right? The bag is going to mean different things to different people. You just touched on it, right? Which we talk about purpose, like finding your purpose. And that comes through experiences, right? And so for me, securing the bag is the bag is happiness. So when you unpack that, what is happiness? It's financial freedom, it's building a legacy, it's contributing to your community, being of value to the world. And that is going to, manifest in different ways based on what your interests are. And I think as younger people on the beginning of their career trajectory, a lot of times we get very literal in our interpretation of advice, right? And so for sure, secure the bag, let's get the money, right? I'm an 80s baby, so get the money is very much part of my vernacular and part of what I thought I needed to do, right? Coming up as a young kid in Los Angeles. But I would always realize that I had people, the wise men, wise women in my world who always would say, don't focus on the money. The money's gonna come if you just focus, be patient, and do good work, right? And so for me, that's really what it's about, is identifying, like, one, what your happiness is, what you want to achieve, what is the desired end result. Like, that's the bag, right? The bag is the end of the goal, the end of the rainbow, the end of the journey, like the reward for that. And if the reward is happiness, or creating a legacy, or building your community up and creating businesses to employ people in your community, then that's what that means. But it's going to mean different things to different people. But you have to take some time as you come up as a young professional to spend time with yourself thinking about that. Because if you think it just means go and make a dollar, you're going to find yourself in a rat race. Oftentimes people, it's a classic tale of people waking up at 40 years old or 50 years old and maybe even accomplished on paper, but there's no fulfillment inside of you. And that's because they were so focused on securing the literal bag.
Olu just dropped some hot science, because that concept of, such a laser focus on the money and the bag, literally, I think is wonderful. I think we've all been on that journey that you have to define it for yourself. Happiness is defined for yourself. Fulfillment is defined for yourself. It's not your family, it's not your friends. And sometimes you have to stumble your way into what that means. And it's a redefinition sometimes of how you really go after that concept. So thank you for that, Olu. I want to get into some of the nitty gritty to make sure that we advance this time. And that is, this is August. It is Black Business Month. What are the tips, the tangible tactical tips that you have for college students as they are trying to advance in the world of entrepreneurship and corporate America? Tell me, 2 or 3 great things that you've learned along the way that you want to share with students. Folayo, we start with you.
If I had to think about tips, it would be know as much as you can know, even if it doesn't necessarily relate to the thing that you're trying to do. The more knowledge that you can gain, the better. So if you know you want to be a salesperson, you want to be in business, you want to be whatever, but if you know all about art and tech and the environment, you can use all of that knowledge to add to whatever path that you're trying to go to. Really listen would be the other thing. I think that oftentimes people come into the conversation wanting to prove themselves, wanting to say something, when if you are a sponge, you can just gain so much from that. So take the opportunity to really listen to the people around you. And this can be your peers, this can be the people that are higher ups, this can be mentors, this can be whoever it is. But people are saying profound things all of the time. It might not be on Instagram, but they are saying it. So that's my third one. Have actual conversations with people off your phone. Put your phone down and talk to people. I think that when you can find the time to do that, you can really grow yourself as a person, which can help you grow your business. And then tactically, get internships, keep in touch with the people that you intern with. Don't get an internship, focus only on your intern group, and then leave. Really, really immerse yourself in the place that you have the opportunity to be, and then keep in touch, not only when you want something. That's a huge thing. Get back to people when you need nothing at all.
I think that last part is really wise. And I've seen that play out in my career, and I'm sure we all have, that when you're touching base with people, it's not just, can I get a meeting? Can I get, this information? Drop them, a LinkedIn article. Drop them something that you saw in their industry that's relevant to them. Drop them an introduction that they may not have to another network that will help them in their business. And then you'll be a value-added relationship. You won't just be somebody who's taking. And so that value-added, that good karma, that good will that you're putting out into the workspace is really going to come back to help you. That aspect of listening is super important. We always say that, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion. So think about that as we listen, as young students, and just I think those are really powerful points. So thank you for that, Folayo. Olu, talk to me about your side.
Yep. I'll kind of cut right to like the nitty gritty, right? And so having the corporate side of experiences coming in, we're talking to HBCUs as a young Black male or female in this world. You're going to deal with a lot. We all have lots of trauma that we've experienced in our life coming up. Something I'll tell you as a young kid coming into the corporate world is nobody gives a shit, right? I'm just being so real. And so with that being said, you have to walk into that door wherever you work. And if you're the only person of this color, you can't allow that to define or dictate like how you operate within those four walls, right? Be good at what you do, take time, right? Don't allow people to pull you out of yourself because they're small-minded, they're marginalized, they're of fear of your greatness, or their fear of not ever growing up with someone who looks or speaks like you. Don't worry about it. Doing amazing work, and that is going to shine. That's like one thing I'll tell you from a corporate perspective, straight up. I was fortunate enough, like coming up, I was literally the only like Black person in my departments, most of every company I was in, right? And I was, by the grace of God, I don't take any credit, right? Like my family, I just didn't allow like I knew who I was as a Black person, and I let my Blackness, like I used it to my advantage, but I didn't wear it as a badge, right? It was kind of like, yeah, I'm different. Yeah, I understand things that you guys don't, but I don't feel like I need to tell you guys anything, because while I'm closing these deals and doing this amazing work, you'll just see how I operate, and you'll begin to want to know like my tricks to the trade. So it all goes back to focusing on what you're there for. And so, and then figure out other side of your work to deal with your traumas, and have a good friend group, or practice meditation by yourself if you have friends who aren't on the same wavelength as you when you coming up as a young professional. On the entrepreneur side, as a young person coming up, reach into your network, collaborate. You have 5 friends or 10 friends and everybody wants to start a fashion line. That's cool, right? How about lock in on the one person who's catching the wave, ride that with them, contribute to that, and then break out after the fact, right? You think about, I'm gonna just say it, think about Kanye, right? And the crew of guys 15 years ago who was part of that, right? They could have all been like, oh, I got my own thing. Let me just do this thing. Like, I don't need Ye. Like, and I'm not like, they were amazing people, but you saw how the collective came up, and all of a sudden you think of a Virgil Abloh and where he is, right? And these other people who have like Jerry Lorenzo, right? And this is kind of in the fashion world, but I'm just saying, right, as an example, you have to have your team of people and get in where you fit in, because it's a long journey, it's a long road. Be patient and contribute to build community around your entrepreneurial endeavors. And we, for some reason, have a challenge doing it because of pride or ego sometimes. And we have to take a step back and don't let that lead and guide our decision making, and really say, that was a good idea. Let's do that. Like, let's do that for 3 or 4 years. And then we can like strategically break out and introduce new brands and new concepts to this movement. But it's about community building and having a movement, and the movement will propel everybody when you think about it being a marathon and not a sprint.
The room is heating up, is getting warmer and warmer. And Olu, I appreciate what you shared, because this notion of not letting other people dim your light and your energy, that's so important, because we carry so much weight with us into these spaces. My friend wrote a book called Black Faces and White Places, and it's very powerful. Dr. Randall Pinkett wrote that, a Rhodes Scholar and a friend of mine from NBC. And he wrote that book, and it talked about, this trauma that we carry into this space, and whether we let it bother us, how we move with it, but don't let other people dim your light. And then this notion, like you said, of so many different waves are happening, but once again, you have to find your lane in terms of how you can contribute, because everybody, no matter who they are, has unique talents to contribute to either a team effort or the things that you're working on. And so you have to really figure out what are those 2 or 3 things that you do better than anyone else, and just stick to them, hammer them home, and then contribute those to the team effort. So thank you for that, Olu. We have about 5 or so minutes left in our panel, so I'm going to ask one more major question, and then hopefully we'll have some chance for the panelists in the chat room to contribute. But I want to talk about the power of mentors. We talked about our networks. We talked about the things you can learn in a corporate environment, et cetera. But talk to me about either a story, a person, or even just the concept of how mentors have been helpful in advancing you to where you want to be today. We want to start with you, Folayo.
It's interesting on the mentor front, and I think it comes in just a little bit of what Olu was saying, is that I've had great friends, great people in my life, great coworkers in my life. I don't know that I've had a straight mentor. And so I've had to kind of look in other spaces and look at other ways of moving. And I get mentored in a sense, and this is not me recommending this is just me. This is a little bit of mentoring by marking down the path of the people that I want to follow and letting them mentor me without their knowledge, in a sense, really learning their path. And that's not to say that I haven't had people along the line that have helped me out, and a network of people that have done, great things for me. But I think sometimes, when you're, we'll say, a square peg of sorts, you kind of do have to figure out your own path. And so it's always been, the mentor thing has always been very interesting to me. I find that for myself right now, being as valuable to people that are coming up with me, or coming next to me, or coming behind me, or whatever it might be, that's where I try to focus my attention on the mentorship. And that's not to say that I can give every minute of every day to other people, because that's just not realistic when you have a busy job, but really trying to keep my eyes and ears open for opportunities for other people. Because the path wasn't that easily paved for me, I tried to clear a space for other people wherever I can. And also just remind other people in the room that there are other people you should be talking to as well. Because I think that sometimes, if we're being very real, certain faces get overlooked for mentorship. And so making sure that there's a reminder that everybody could use that. Everybody could use that hand and that guidance, and nobody else knows what's in front of them. So you can't just leave any groups out. And I think that that's really been my charge, is how do I be for other people what wasn't necessarily there for me. And again, going back to the network, really be in real relationship with people. Like, that's mentorship, community, network. Be in a real relationship with people. Be in a relationship that is give and get, that you are of value to people. Even if you have a mentor, be of value to that mentor. And then they'll be guiding you, and it won't feel like a chore or a job or even a good deed on their part. It's just like, I really like having this person around. I want to help. So I think that's what I would say in terms of the mentorship. I think right now with HBC, something like this, with just the rise of people paying more attention, there's been no better time to just reach out to people, because I think people are realizing that they should be, looking around them and not just in the mirror. So I think this is a good time.
I think that's really powerful, because as I think about it, I heard from you a quote that that I often try and live by, and that is, we all drink from wells that we did not dig. We all drink from wells that we did not dig. And that's the power of mentorship. Whether you dug it or not, or whether you can dig it for someone else, we all drink from wells that we did not dig. And then when I used to work on Wall Street at Goldman, we used to have a saying that people do business with you because they like you, they trust you, and they think you can make them money. Simple and plain. And so if you're talking about a mentor relationship, you want to do business with people, like you talked about, the power of just being liked, Folayo. I want to help Folayo out. I want to introduce her or put her down with this business opportunity just because I like her. So they like you, they trust you, and they think you can make them money. So please remember those. Olu, let's jump to you on the power of mentorship.
So interesting enough, like Folayo, I don't know that I had a straight up mentor, right? And here's, I'm all about testimonies over sermons, right? And so I say that to say, I probably had a little bit of challenge getting over myself, right? And because when you are, right, and sometimes we don't want to look in the mirror and admit that that contributed to why you didn't take advantage of those mentors that were there, but you felt like I called that person once and they didn't call me back. I emailed them twice and they didn't email me back. So they're not interested and I don't need them. I got a 4.0 at Howard or Hampton, so I'm Gucci, right? Like that's like we good, right? And that's cool. I love the pride, right? Sometimes you need your ego, to battle the world, but you have to lean in, like Folayo mentioned about being of value to these people, right? So you have to take a step back and think, all right, what is the importance of this? How can I add value to that person? If I see some people, male or female, whomever in this world that I think hold characteristics and levels of integrity or success that I want to learn from, you have to relentlessly pursue them. Relentlessly pursue them. Make people tell you, no, I don't want to help you. Make them. If somebody says, yo, call me, here's my card, call me. Make them say, yo, I was just lying. I really didn't want to, right? They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So you have to actually pursue that and get over yourself. And the second thing I'll say to, again, I love like the vibes that we have going on with this conversation is, as Folayo and Kwame mentioned, is I'm a Q. We lift as we climb, right? And so sometimes you don't even realize as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in college, how impactful you can be and how accomplished you are to someone else, a younger person within, whether it's your school environment or maybe it's in your community. And if you're not doing that, then you have to really take a step and look back at yourself and figure out how can you do that? Because we all are only as good as the impact we leave and the legacy we leave after us. So there's power in looking up and finding and identifying that mentor. But if you're not sitting, figuring out how can you help somebody coming up after you in some way, like that is truly what it's about.
First of all, shout out to the men of 1911 of Omega Psi Phi and to Kappa Alpha Psi. There you go, the men of 1911. And I think we're all focused on uplifting our people in a magnificent way. And then, Olu, you hit the nail on the head. We all have to get over ourselves, me included. And it's like, you have to understand that you are a dog with a bone, to use a Q analogy, right? Which is go after it, pursue it, and realize that if someone's way up here and you hit them 7 times on email, that's not gonna, make a difference. You got to hit them with the 8th, the 9th, the 10th. And that relentless pursuit, like you talked about, is very important in terms of building those relationships and just showing that you're hungry and that you have the ambition and that you want to contribute to the conversation and the relationship. I just saw in the chat, someone said the energy in here is amazing. I'm hyped in this little chat room. I think this is awesome. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I didn't know if there's going to be any closing messages that you want to share, either Olu or Folayo, but you guys have been wonderful. I want to give you a chance for a brief closing message, and then I'm going to throw it over to our next panelist if you guys would like to share. Folayo first.
No, I'm hyped up by this conversation as well. I think if you take something from this, it's that be relentless, make them tell you no. That's huge, because I think that covers a lot. I think that you can get that small, simple sentence, make them tell you no, can cover so many things on so many paths. And it comes back to being on you and securing that bag, whatever that bag is for you. And I just, that fired me up, because I think that it is such a great reminder. For me, I'm not in college anymore, but I think my note there is keep learning. Like I think I got as much out of this panel as I hope everybody else listening. So like, never be the smartest person in the room, never be above learning from the people that are around you. It is amazing what you can get when you stay humble.
Awesome. Olu, please share.
last thing I'll just say is something that I think we just don't hear enough at the stage in the career people are on this call, which is meditation, mindfulness, working on your inner peace and your inner happiness. That it sounds like some up in the clouds thing that's you can't touch, but like the more you work on yourself, the more you read personal development books, the more you sit and be okay with not going out and understanding your triggers and your trauma, you will be at such an exponential advantage in life just based on your awareness of self and how you impact others and how you receive things. So that's what I want probably the most to tell people at this point in stage in your career is focus on yourself in every aspect, the inner and external.
That concept of mind, body, and soul is so important. You see it right now with Naomi Osaka and the things that she has shared. You see it with Simone Biles and the things that she has shared. You got to get right within. Lauryn Hill used to say it all the time. You ain't gonna win until you get right within. So it's like we all have to do that, and no matter what stage you are in your career, and it's better to start early. So thank you, Olu. Thank you, Folayo.